Hi, my name is Amy and welcome to Bleeding Tree Gaming. In the second part of my video on painting Malekith the Accursed from the Marvel Crisis Protocol range, I'm going to take a look at how I painted the wings. Now, this scheme will work well on any kind of demonic or evil dragon wings, so let's take a look at it. If you didn't watch my last video, I explained a few key concepts in it, so you might want to check that out first. But basically what we're going to be doing is using freehand to draw lots of lines and also in this one circles. I'm going to practice on a piece of paper first. This is the same piece of paper I used last week for the lines of the fur. And you can see I'm just trying to get some nice even circles. It's very hard to get a perfect circle with a paintbrush, but you can try to get them as smooth as possible, and sometimes they get a bit messy like that one I just did. But you want to try and smooth them out as much as you can. Now that's going to be very important in a bit, so hold on to that thought. You can see I've got the wings here, and as before I've given the whole thing a zenithal prime. Now you can see they're very white because they are on the top of the model, but there are some deep shadows catching in places, and what I want to be doing is really kind of accentuating that. I'm going to base paint the whole thing with some dark Prussian blue, but I want to remember where those shadows are, and that's going to be important for us in a bit. So I'm just roughly covering the whole of this. I don't care if the layer's a bit transparent, I'm just going to do it in a single layer. So there we go, now that's dried. I'm going to start with a 50-50 mix of that dark Prussian blue and some blue-green by Vallejo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do lines similar to the ones I did in the fur video. I'm just trying to keep them all even, fairly thick at this point, and I'm just going to hit all of the parts that were catching light before. I'm just going to build them up layer after layer. I won't just leave it at that, I will come back and do another pass. Not trying to keep within the lines of the previous ones, maybe sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You're building up this patchwork, there's so much paint building up that it gives your eyes the illusion that there's so much more detail to the figure than there actually is. So after that I take some pure blue-green and I'm going to do the same thing, just slightly smaller. Notice how the blue-green quickly builds up to be quite bold in the centre, but then it kind of trails off as it goes out. And make sure when you're doing this to hit any kind of raised lines, particularly on the fold of the wings that's there in the sculpt, to just accentuate that. Next I mix that 50-50 the blue-green with the sunny skin tone from Vallejo. Another pass. Trying to be a little more delicate here, but still these lines aren't particularly thin. After that, I'm moving on to pure sunny skin tone. These lines have been very delicate now, especially in the folds of the wings. Making sure I get the centre and I get all of those like raised lines of the wing. But again, you want to build up a patchwork on this. Like, you shouldn't see any single brush stroke. I said in my last video and I'll say again, like, the idea is you create the brush strokes and then you break them up. So what you see is the effect of about, well, tens, maybe even hundreds of brush strokes all working together. The final thing I do is just mix that sunny skin tone with some white blue. and I'm just going to hit some of the very raised parts with it. Some very tiny lines now, just covering where the most light would be hitting the wing. Okay, so that's the basic texture done. I'm going to add some more colour by just wet blending a little bit of the royal purple into the darkest areas of the wing. Now on this segment I've got here, these are the edges, but in some of them it might be the centre, particularly on the underside of the wing. I actually make a big hash out of wet blending here, but it's okay. It's getting covered up with the spots. There's so much information going on that a few little watermarks probably aren't going to be the end of the world. But if you want a better idea of how to blend, you should watch my blending video, in which I do much better than this, I swear. Now I'm just going to take some dark magenta and I'm just going to start drawing in random spots. Now I want them to be more focused around the edges, because I imagine they're like tears in the membrane of the wing, and they'd occur where there's more tension, closer to the phalanges, are they called? The wing fingers. I prefer wing fingers, I think. So I'm just trying to be completely random with the size and placement of these dots, and it can be hard because your mind will try and slip into making patterns from them. But yeah, the more random you can get them in size, shape and placement, the better. Just try and ease off on them on the centre part of the wing. Okay, so now I'm going to take some black and I'm going to outline all of those spots that I've just done. Just keep your paint very thin and just try and get them a neat black outline. Now some of the small ones you might mess up and get it a bit too dark, but that's okay. Just try your best to keep it neat at this stage. Okay, so the next step we've got here is I've just added some white into that dark magenta, some of the white blue actually, and I'm just going to try and continue inside the spots some of the lines running along the wing. So I'm going to repeat in the direction of those lines from earlier, and you just have to suggest it really, you don't need to go all out here. Just a few little dabs here and there should do the trick. Okay, so the next stage is to highlight around the edges, like outside of that black outline you just put on all the spots. I'm going to go straight back to my blue-green for this. This colour is only going to be really noticeable on the outside, on the where the spot is contrasting against the darker section. But as we highlight up, we're going to focus more on those higher parts. Okay, so I'm basically going to go up through all the colours that I highlighted the membrane with. This is the mix of the blue-green and the sunny skin tone, and I'm going to avoid highlighting the darkest parts. They'll be fine with just that blue-green highlight, but try and focus highlights as I go further up, more towards the centre of the wing, the brightest point. Now some pure sunny skin tone. I'm only hitting some little sections on some of them. You might be able to detect on some of these I'm just using the natural shake of my hand just to jagged up those lines. You could get them perfect, but I find a tiny bit of random movement in your hand will actually make it look like there's more detail to the model than just a straight line would give you. anything you can do to break up lines. That's really been a theme on this model. Just fools the eye into thinking there's much more detail than there actually is, which is a very handy trick for painters. Finally, I'm just going to add a few sparse dots, almost randomly placed, of that Scunny skin tone and white blue mix, and that'll be the last thing I do here. I've really enjoyed painting this model. It's been a massive challenge, loads of new textures to try out, and it's just been great as a learning process for me, and I hope you can learn something from that as well. I've been Amy for Bleeding Tree Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to show some beauty shots of the model in a minute. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.